Hey folks, Crazyclimber80 here again, and we're going to do a special series now. This will be arcade classic video games in the emulator MAME with invincibility on in the attract mode to see what characters do in the attract mode. And I'm not sure how many videos this will take, but be an interesting little series. But that's what the attract mode is, just kind of a little presentation of how the game is played. But we're going to look at a bunch of classic games. And they're going to be primarily 70s and 80s games. But the first one we're going to look at is Depth Charge. This was black and white with a little overlay. I remember this classic back in the day at Malibu Grand Prix. Fun game. But you have a submarine at the top, and you try to, or a ship at the top, and you try to torpedo submarines below. And by putting the invincibility cheat on in the emulator MAME, your ship can take the bombs or the missiles or whatever that the submarines are firing up at your ship, and they will just show a little damage. Otherwise, they would have sunk you completely, but they just show a little damage, and the computer will continue playing until the attract mode freezes, and then it starts over. So we'll just look at that for a little bit. Hope you had a great weekend. It's not over yet, but so far for me it's going pretty good. We had a lot cooler weather, so that was nice. Yeah, I think this missile is going to hit me. A couple missiles. Yeah, see, it just shows damage. Otherwise it would have sunk without the invincibility cheat. But I'm showing the invincibility cheat for all these games. Well, almost all of them. One of them, you have to have infinite bullets instead, and we'll look at that later. But that's the invincibility on the attract mode for Depth Charge, and now we're going to look at the classic Space Invaders. And we won't show the whole attract mode in all the games, but I basically want you to get a gist of what it's like to see what happens when you should have died in a game in the attract mode, and that didn't happen, and how the computer reacts. See, it should have been shot there and destroyed, but it's still going. Your ship will have these little back and forth movements as it continues to shoot, and it will eventually take out all the invaders. So we'll just speed forward. It never seems to hit the UFO, ever, which sucks, but it has enough back and forth motion and shooting constantly to be able to take all the invaders out so they don't reach the bottom. See? And after that, there's no more invaders spawned, and the ship has the chance to try to take out UFOs. And I let this run for a long time before, pre-edit in this video, and it would never hit that stupid UFO. See, the UFO appears, and it just doesn't seem to be able to hit it. And now we're going to look at Astro Fighter, and this was released in late 1979 in Japan, and in the US in 1980. Cool game, but in the attract mode here, your ship is invincible to enemy shots, but it never seems to be able to finish off a wave of enemies. And when you fail to finish off a wave of enemies, they reappear at the top, and your ship gets pushed upwards a little bit. Your ship will eventually run out of fuel. There was a cheat to keep your ship from running out of fuel, but that wouldn't prove very interesting. You would just keep going on and on, not running out of fuel and not running out of energy, and the attract mode would last forever. But at any rate, I skipped forward eventually, I think. Or no, I let this play through. You would not face the boss, the final boss, which is the Gremlin Sega mothership or whatever, or a Deco mothership. But we're going to scoot to the final enemies. When you run out of fuel, the attract mode ends. And it goes back to the scoring screen. Now we're going to look at Head On. And this was a cool classic by Sega, or Gremlin Sega. If you have invincibility on, you'll just go right through the other car, whose goal is to try to ram you. And if you run into them while you're running over dots, then those dots will not get picked up, and you'll have to go back over them. And I think that once you run over all the dots, then you just keep on driving. There's no more dots to pick up, but you just keep driving. In this game, the computer can eventually leave new dots for you to have to get. See, the computer will eventually pick up all the dots. It'll take a while, but they keep on driving. And now we're going to look at Galaxian. Invincibility on in Galaxian. You cannot be destroyed, you cannot be rammed or shot. And the computer will eventually destroy all the invaders. And they will go on to the next screen and play another rack of invaders. I didn't see this game until like 1980 when it was released in the US. I think I first saw it at either my dad's bowling alley or at a 7-Eleven. I think his bowling alley. He didn't own the bowling alley, but he played their league Monday nights. And yep, you just play the next rack. Computer keeps shooting constantly. And next, we're going to look at Sheriff. And this was a cool game for its time. This was originally called Sheriff by Nintendo and later released as Bandito under the Exidy license. Once you get hit by a shot, the attract mode ends. Kind of lame. This game is a lot of fun. I enjoy this quite a bit. I only saw the cabinet of Bandito once at a seaside arcade. And now we're going to look at Centipede. And in this, your gun has a little kind of bouncy and stop movement. And it's constantly shooting. So it can clear a rack of Centipede parts. And unlike in the arcade regular play, the Centipede will not regenerate parts once it reaches the bottom area, which it's nice. That kind of frustrated me in the arcade game regular play, but then just another Centipede will appear. Note that you can't shoot through the words in the high score list there, or where it says 1 coin, 1 play bonus every 12,000. Kind of interesting. But now we're going to look at Space Panic by Universal. And the computer will never kill all the aliens. They'll kill one, but that's pretty much it. They'll sometimes dig holes, but they'll just let the aliens fall in them, and they can't be killed by touching an alien. They'll just eventually run out of oxygen. See that there's a digital meter at the bottom, and then there's an increment meter at the top. If you try to put on both invincibility and infinite oxygen in the attract mode, I think the game crashes. This game got really frickin' hard after this first stage, or after the first maybe few stages, when they introduced the green and then later the white aliens that you had to make fall further than just one floor, and now we're going to see me run out of oxygen. This is creepy. His face turns red and then he just falls over dead. That's a Space Panic by Universal. And now we're going to look at Crazy Climber with You Cannot Fall. no matter what. Windows closing, pots being dropped on your head, King Kong slapping you in the face, the condor pooping or dropping eggs on you. That none of those things will make you fall. But the computer's climbing motion that it kind of repeats will get you stuck at a certain point just before King Kong. See, the items that enemies drop go right through you. He manages to somehow worm his way out of this part here. But he can't do that just before he gets to King Kong. Or where King Kong is standing. Yeah, normally Windows would pinch your hand and you'd fall. Unless you had another hand planted firmly on another ledge. Yeah, the physics of this game were kind of hard to get used to. But I really enjoyed it back in the day. I still enjoy it. It's good, solid classic. But yeah, the computer will eventually pass the condor there, and he'll get to King Kong. But he just cannot seem to get out of this corner here. He'll be stuck here. King Kong looks really goofy in this game. I really like Crazyclimber. It's a great game. This is why where I got my YouTube username from. But that's Crazyclimber by Nichibutsu and licensed to Taito in the US. Seemed to be like grabbing at his nipples or something. And now we're going to look at ASTRO INVADER, created by a company called Leijac, who later became known as Konami. And this was licensed to Stern in the US. Now, enemies that drop and break on the ground and make this splatter effect is supposed to kill your spaceship or destroy your spaceship. And also, letting one of those UFO things land will also destroy your spaceship. But the screen will turn red when you are destroyed. But, of course, that's not going to happen with invincibility cheat in the attract mode. And the UFOs drop through the bottom of the screen. The counter on that ship at the top center it'll still be able to run down to 0, and then it'll leave and replace the screen with more invaders. But now we're going to look at Berserk. And one thing you'll notice is that the robots can't kill each other by a collision. That could happen in the arcade. And the evil auto will bounce right through you. And that's supposed to kill you on this second screen here. And of course it does not. And your guy will act weirdly. He'll just sit there and try to shoot at Evil Otto, and then he'll just walk through the floor, which is supposed to electrify and kill your humanoid character. Doesn't happen here. Just go to another screen. And the guy's just like, I'm not sure what to do here. That's what I like about the attract mode with invincibility on your character. Is just like, I was supposed to die. What am I supposed to do now? Just some weird things that happen in these games when you got invincibility cheat on, at least in MAME anyway. Now we're going to look at Carnival, and this is a great classic. There's not an invincibility cheat, but there's infinite bullets, and if you let these ducks fly down and eat your bullets, your supply dwindles quickly. But it doesn't look like at first that it might replenish, but it will. So you can just keep on shooting. Eventually, the game will stop. The attract mode will stop and reset. Some of the games do that. It's just a matter of time that you get the attract mode on, even if you have invincibility cheat. This is a fantastic classic. I really enjoyed this game. There were a number of home video game systems that this had a really good port of. It was okay for the Intellivision. The music was really annoying, but the gameplay was pretty solid. It was best on the ColecoVision, I think. Yeah, you'll see like an extra row of bullets appear, but after fashion, the attract mode will stop and restart. Used to think those ducks were ghosts when I was a real little kid. Now we're going to look at Moon CRESTA, created by Nichibutsu and licensed in the US to Gremlin Sega. And you'll see the actual cheat menu here. Put on Invincibility. Your ship in the attract mode will play through the whole game and start over. And it'll succeed in all the docking sequences. And when you dock, you get extra firepower. See an extra piece of a ship added to my regular ship. This was also a big classic. I remember the opening music playing, and I would hear that throughout the arcade, and I'd know that they had Moon CRESTA. This game was also called Eagle and licensed to Century. I never saw that version. I only saw Moon CRESTA. I did not see Moon CRESTA in the Nichibutsu cabinet. I guess that was also released in the US. But I just saw the Gremlin Sega cabinet, or Sega Gremlin cabinet. Sometimes it would say Gremlin Sega, sometimes it would say Sega Gremlin. But we're scooting forward. I'm not showing the whole attract mode, but I just want to scoot forward so you can see that they play the game all the way through. Yeah, far out. But now we're going to look at Phoenix. This was one of my favorite games. I have the arcade cabinet in my house. I'm looking at it right now in my living room. This also, I think, the attract mode stops after a little while, but it will scoot to the next stage. Well, it'll skip the second bird stage and go to the egg stage here. But when it shows the mothership, that will not end. But your ship will never destroy the mothership, because it'll start going to the far left and only weaving back to the right a little bit, and you need to shoot up the middle to destroy the mothership, so it won't be able to shoot it. And this will just keep going and on and on and on. Yeah, I always loved Phoenix. I remember going to Godfather's Pizza back in the day, and they had a Phoenix machine there, and I just played the hell out of it. I loved Phoenix. Very fun game. See, it's only going to the left side. It's not going to the right enough to shoot up the middle. So this part of the attract mode will just keep going on forever. Now we're going to look at Rally X with invincibility on, and this goes on forever. And the pattern that the computer employs, they shoot off a lot of smoke screen. There's infinite fuel too with invincibility automatically, but the pattern of movement that the computer utilizes will never allow it to complete the stage and get all the flags. In fact, I think it only picks up one in the attract mode with invincibility on, which is kind of lame. But it'll just be stuck here forever because it'll never get all the flags. In fact, it almost seems like it deliberately avoids the flags. That sucks. I liked Rally X a lot in the arcades. I got a lot better at it over the years. Jeez Louise, yeah, he puts out a lot of smoke screen. Yeah, absolute classic fun game. And now we're going to look at Space Zap, and this was kind of a reaction game. You have a fortress, and you move a cannon and shoot these enemies and the space mines that they fire. And you are supposed to die if you let a space mine cross the center of your fortress. But now it just shows an explosion hole. There's supposed to be a satellite that'll appear and fly around your fortress. That does not show in the attract mode. Now we're going to look at SPECTAR. This was the sequel to TARG. And this attract mode will end after a short amount of time and restart. I preferred SPECTAR over TARG. TARG was a little bit too hard for me, but this is a really good sequel. Note that the kind of see-through blocks you can go right through. And now we're going to look at TARG. And note how weirdly slow your vehicle moves at the bottom right. But they'll never shoot, even with the limited amount of time, they won't shoot all the enemies. There's a limited amount of time because, like in SPECTAR, the attract mode ends. And note that the enemies dug a hole in the floor and went through it. That was kind of strange. Yeah, your vehicle is called a Wummel, and the enemies are Targ ram ships. Kind of weird names for characters in this game. But now we're going to look at the old classic Wizard of War. And this has weird sound samples. Sorry, they are not correct. I didn't put one player with invincibility, then I put them both on. But this attract mode will end after a short while. This game was creepy as hell back in the day. Yeah, those sound samples aren't right. And now we move on to classic Pac-Man. In this one, I think you need like a couple hours in the attract mode or so for the computer to clear all those dots. It seems to leave a very small trail above the ghost pen and never seems to get back to it. But I swear to God, I let it go once in the attract mode with invincibility, and it ended up getting that trail, and it just moved on to the second maze. But yeah, he's invincible. He's able to go right through the ghosts. He gets almost the whole maze cleared. Almost all the dots. There's just a handful above the ghost pen somewhere that he does not seem to get. But I swear I did this once, and he was able to clear them all. Now I'm just gonna scoot forward to him, almost clearing it. Benny Hill music, but yeah, eventually he will clear almost everything. There's just a little trail above the ghost pen that he does not clear, and his remaining patterns seem to avoid those last few dots. Although I think once I was able to have him clear all the rest. See, those dots he does not seem to want to get. But at any rate, that's Pac-Man, and now we're going to move on to the year 1981 in games. In just a second here. Let's look at Donkey Kong. And there's a number of weird cheats, but the best one is invincibility, although Mario will fall off to the right of this one girder that he's standing on, and after that he will not climb up. Now he'll eventually fall off once the hammer wears off. But there's also like an infinite climb cheat that's weird. It's not that great. There's an infinite hammer one that's not that great, but eventually Mario will just fall off the right, and he'll just sit there going, "Hey, I was supposed to die. What's going on?" But he wasn't even called Mario yet. He was called Jumpman. But got a lot more barrels and fireballs now. Eventually, the timer will just run down to 0, and Mario will die in the attract mode, and it will start over. Let's speed up the process. I'm not going to, quote-unquote, sing the Benny Hill theme this time. Yeah, Mario should have died a long time ago. can almost hear the game thinking, what's going on? I was supposed to be dead. What do I do now? Well, you run out of time and die. There we go. But next we're going to look at the game INVADER. And this was released by Konami in 1981 and in the US with the Stern license in 1982, I believe. The computer will not complete either the pig stage or the natives stage. It will eventually paint the four corners or clear the four corners so that the enemies can be killed by you running into them. But with invincibility cheat on, you can do that anytime. You can run into them and kill them, even when they're supposed to be able to kill you. And once you kill an enemy, it will just sit there. It will be frozen in space. Or maybe it'll fall to the ground, but it won't return to action. And that'll happen in, like I said, in both the pig stage and the native stage. In the pig stage, you're a paint roller, and in the native stage, you're a gorilla. Just a weird game, but oh so addictive, and the music was fan-freaking-tastic. Konami's almost always had great music in their games, and INVADER was definitely had some of the more hummable tunes. Just a fun game. I used to have the Atari 2600 port, which was kind of substandard. But yeah, the enemies will not return to action once you've killed them. And yeah, your movement pattern in the track mode with invincibility will not allow you to finish a stage. I remember back in the day, some games would allow you to take controls in the attract mode at some point. We'll look at a little bit of that later on in the series, or maybe even in this video. But that's INVADER. And they have infinite jumps. And now let's look at Astro Blaster. Boy, did I love this game. With invincibility on, you also have infinite fuel. And you will just keep playing through all the stages, or the computer will. They can't be shot. They can't run out of fuel. One thing that will keep them from finishing the game through, and it will probably eventually happen, is there will be some enemies that will descend, and they will, like these guys. And once one gets to your plane, you're screwed. You won't be able to destroy it. It won't go through the screen and advance to the next set of enemies. See? You're screwed. So that's pretty much the end of the attract mode for you. Or nothing new to watch. Now we're going to look at a Cosmic Avenger. And this keeps you completely invincible. You can go through walls. You can not be destroyed by the enemies or their fire. The computer will just keep playing through all the stages, and afterwards even. This is kind of I wasn't super impressed by this game. It's a kind of cheapo version of Scramble. Scramble was much more polished. See the weird effects of the explosions, and as you move forward, the explosions continue moving to the right, which is just messed up looking. But the computer has kind of a move forward, pull backward, and always firing and bombing kind of motion. And it just keeps that up throughout the play, and you'll see the number of the stage going by at the bottom, and it just rolls over from 99 to 0. And the computer just keeps on playing. And now we're going to look at Make Tracks, which was also known as Crush Roller. In the attract mode, I enjoyed this game. This game was fun. the computer will beat the stage and continue on to the next one. It'll take it a while to complete a stage. But eventually it will come back to that last little bit and paint it, and it'll go to the next stage. And partway through the stage, it will get the bonus enemy that appears, and the bonus enemy can't hurt you or anything. It'll just lay new tracks for you to have to pick up. But that is a good thing, because the tracks that this enemy, and there it's laying the tracks, will speed you up. And if you don't have tracks to pick up, the fish enemies can close in on you pretty darn quick. So try not to kill off that bonus creature. It's a mouse, a bird, or whatever. Let it lay tracks so you can separate yourself from the fish. And the computer doesn't want to use those brushes very well to squish the fish, which is what nets you some nice points in this game. But yeah, it just goes on to the next stage. And again, this is also called Crush Roller. Now we're going to look at a weird game called Roundup, or also known as Fitter. The computer cannot solve this egg puzzle in the middle with its movement pattern. Your goal is to make all those eggs in the center white, and you do that by pushing eggs into the maze. Try to set them up so that they're all white, and then you can advance to the next stage. But that never happens here. And those enemies called the Glide Brothers will try to catch you and kill you. And the graphics are kind of messed up because you're supposed to be a weird little robot guy with a top hat, but he's just the shape of the eggs instead. See, he's a large white egg. I'd never seen this in arcades. This is a strange little game. And now we're going to look at Frogger. This was released by Konami and licensed to Sega, or Gremlin Sega, in the US in 1981. And this is an interesting little game. It's a huge runaway classic, but I meant to say this is an interesting little glitchy attract mode when you have invincibility on. The pattern of his movements is similar from throughout the attract mode, but it's off from where it was the first time around. So he is unable to bring his frog into one of the 5 safe places at the top, and he reappears at the bottom because he keeps hopping through the wall. Just weird. And so he cannot complete the attract mode here. He can go through the water. He can not be killed by anything or even going over the falls, but he will not be able to go into one of the safe spots again. And that's Frogger. Even if the time is up, he won't die. Now we're going to look at Galaga Classic. In the attract mode, it'll end or restart shortly after your ships were supposed to be destroyed, and right after you get double ships in the attract mode, the computer was supposed to lose them, and you have to get caught by the enemy's tractor beam there. You turn red, and then you have to rescue that ship while its captor is in flight. So you have to shoot that blue ship, and there he gets his ship back, and he can have double shots. Now, shortly after you get the double shots, the computer was supposed to lose this, one at a time, and it doesn't happen. And shortly after, the track mode will end. There we go. And now we're going to look at the cool game Jump Bug. And the computer will do a whole playthrough and continue after that. with the invincibility cheat. But at certain points, you can take over and play or help guide the jumping car. Just at certain points. Other than that, the computer has control. They make the car shoot all the time. This was a cool game. I enjoyed this in arcades. This is kind of a neat game. The game often seems to put you in places where you're going to get hit. It's tough to avoid. Right here, you can take control. And if you don't take control, I think the computer just keeps jumping up here. And you can start moving your ship, or your car, to the right. And you need to go up through the ceiling. I love how you can totally control your descent. You can make it really slow, or you can push down on the joystick and make it real quick. And this is a really cool game. I think the computer takes back over here. But yeah, at certain junctures, you physically can take over and start using the joystick. Yeah, there's a few games that let you play during the attract mode, and this is one of them. And then the game just restarts once you finish the game in the attract mode, or once the computer finishes the game, the computer and you. And now we're going to look at Lock and Chase. This is originally for the Deco cassette system, but also licensed to Taito. And in this one, the Lupin character, the thief that you control, will stop moving at a certain point. I think he's already passed through enemies. Collecting that treasure bag is supposed to freeze the enemies for a short while. That doesn't happen in the attract mode. But when Lupin decides to stop moving, he can't finish the game, and it won't. It'll just the attract mode won't be allowed to finish the level. Yeah, he stops moving about here, I think. I used to love Lock and Chase. Now we're going to look at Ms. Pac-Man. The attract mode won't finish the maze. Eventually, Ms. Pac-Man won't go lower than the top third of the maze to be able to complete it. I just wanted you to basically get the gist of what each game will do with invincibility on in the attract mode. I won't show every minute of the attract mode while they're invincible, because that would take forever. I just wanted you to get the idea of what happens and explain as best I can what happens. Yeah, Ms. Pac-Man. I think I first remember it at my dad's cafe at the department store where he worked. They had kind of crappy food. This was a tabletop version, and this was created by General Computing Corporation or Computer Corporation, and licensed to Bally Midway. And this is Omega Race, cool black and white game where the action rotates around a rectangle. You fly around this rectangle, and there's objects and enemies that you shoot. A very haunting theme. Very few of these attract modes will have any sound at all. That's just how they were in the arcade. Yeah, the action will eventually stop and go to the high score list after a while. The computer won't complete a stage. And next we're going to look at a game called Pleiades. It is also known as Pleiades, but it's supposed to be Pleiades, I believe. This has sound effects in the attract mode. And this will this will play through the whole game. Some stages it will have trouble finishing, but it'll take a long time, but it will eventually will. I liked, yeah, this might have been more of a spiritual sequel to Phoenix. I liked Phoenix a whole lot better than this. Although this wasn't terrible, and I did see this in a lot of arcades. I also remember seeing this in a 5 and Dime store. Oh my god. Anybody remember those? Or were alive when they made them? Or were born around the time that they were out? Yeah, they disappeared probably when I was in my early teens. But yeah, they had a Pleiades machine there. Weird little game. And on this part, this can take forever to beat. It seems like the computer's pattern doesn't move it into the path of the enemy to destroy it enough, but eventually it will, I think. Come on. Yeah, the graphics get a little screwy too. And yeah, this one doesn't seem to want to end, but eventually the computer will destroy the mothership. You're supposed to hit its opening exhaust ports, I guess. And eventually the computer will hit one once, I believe. And then the ship will soon after be destroyed. Okay, I guess it blew up. And then you do this little runway sequence. And you're supposed to die if you run into one of those ships on the runway, or if you run off of the runway. And of course that doesn't happen when you have invincibility on in MAME. And you can collect a flag to get some extra points. This little sound effect here kind of creeped me out when I was moving, like it would almost make me crash. And it just plays all the stages over again. That was Pleiades. Now we're going to look at Kicks. Classic game. That part you will die even if you have invincibility on. But Kicks, I think, also had sound effects in the attract mode. Yep. Yeah, I remember this game well. This is fun, but this is way hard. Making buildings all over the place, and you can hold down one button to make your buildings slower, but you get more points. And just try to fill up 75% or more of the screen with buildings, and avoid the titular kicks, which is a bunch of sticks moving around trying to stab you. Even if it stabs your trail, you will die. But your character stops right after it gets, or what should have been, killed, and so it can't finish the attract mode. Kicks will just keep bouncing around. And now we're going to look at Scramble. Fantastic classic by Konami and licensed to Stern. If you have invincibility on, but you didn't put on infinite fuel, you will eventually die. You will eventually crash and end the attract mode. But even if you have both on, both cheats, you cannot finish all the stages because your ship just doesn't move. Doesn't move, doesn't shoot, don't do nothing. It's one inert ship. But we will eventually look at its follow-up, Super Cobra, which has you fly in a helicopter. Yeah, there he crashes and ends the attract mode. But now we're going to look at, in just a moment, we will look at Stargate. And here's him with the infinite fuel cheat. See, he will just fly over the boss that you're supposed to destroy and start all the stages over. But he's not doing nothing. Now let's look at Stargate. In this attract mode, it will return to the enemy list after a little while. So it'll play with invincibility for a while. And this was the sequel to Defender. And then it'll just start over. It'll go back to the enemy list or scoring list. I was never good at this or at Defender. They were just too hard for me. There was some extra things you could do in this game. They were kind of interesting. Some new abilities or something. In an Inviso button and an ability to warp stages, I think, and get a bunch of bonus points. But yeah, eventually the game will just scoot you back to the enemy or scoring list. And the computer took a little too long, and so all these enemies start appearing everywhere. Yeah, now we're going to look at Super Cobra. And again, this is the sequel to Scramble. If you have invincibility on, you don't need to put on infinite fuel, because even though your fuel ticks down, once it reaches 0, you won't crash and burn. So you can just have invincibility on. That's good enough. The game will not advance a stage. It'll stick you on the first stage. There will be no new enemies, which is weird. Unlike in Scramble, which allowed you to advance stages, and eventually things will start getting weird. You'll see the rockets that rise up from the bottom. They'll be stuck to the ceiling, and then they'll crash. What the hell? That's weird. That was Super Cobra's attract mode. Now we're going to look at Tank Battalion. I don't remember seeing this in the arcades, but this was still kind of a classic by Namco. Your tank will not go down to the bottom. You will need to put on not only invincibility, but you will need to put on an indestructible flag or something, because once an enemy destroys that flag, it's game over. So make sure to put that cheat on too. But like I said, your tank will not be able to beat the attract mode or the CPUs that's controlling it. It will not go down to finish off the tanks that are now at the bottom of the screen. That's Tank Battalion, and I don't remember seeing that in arcades. Thief, I remember seeing in the arcades. This is fun. It's a Pac-Man clone with dollar bills to run over, and you're driving a car. Invincibility, I think, allows you to destroy a car even if you didn't run over a dollar sign, which acts as the energizers. But the computer will not finish a maze. It'll have a pattern that keeps it from seeking out all the dollar bills to clear the maze. It won't do it, and it'll just kind of be stuck in the attract mode. I love this. I saw this at Malibu Grand Prix, and my sister and I played the living hell out of it. Some cabinets had an audio track of actual police banter, which was kind of amusing. The arcade cabinet that I saw back in the day did not have that, but it definitely adds some flavor to the game. But that's Thief by a company called Pacific Novelty, and they didn't make a whole lot of games. And this might have been one of their best ones, or their best one. I enjoyed it enough. It was fairly derivative, but it's still kind of fun. Reaganomics with the dollar bills everywhere kind of attracted my eye. Now we're going to look at Turbo, a cool old racing game. Now the computer will drive at high speeds, and they can never run into the enemy. They just run right through them. Nothing can happen to the computer, and the computer will finish a stage pretty quick, or a course pretty quick. and then they'll collect the points for all the cars that they passed. This was a cool old game for its time. It had kind of clumsy clumsy looking collisions, but it was still pretty impressive for its time. And then it just, after beating a course, you're supposed to have an amount of cars that you'll lose from colliding with the other cars, and once you're out of cars you will die, but that's only upon the second playthrough or afterwards. Now we're going to look at Turtles. This is a maze game by Konami and licensed to Stern in the US. You can once you get touched by the enemy in the attract mode with the invincibility cheat on, your turtle will freeze. And its goal is to collect baby turtles and return them to a house that appears on the screen. And see, he froze. He was supposed to die. Yep, he's going to freeze there, and that'll basically be the end of the attract mode. And now we're going to look at Vanguard, created by SNK and licensed to Century. This will always have the invincibility on, and you can collect an invincibility capsule or something in this game that'll allow you to crash through walls, crash through enemies without dying, and you will always have that in the attract mode if you have the invincibility cheat on. But you can never complete one single stage. You will be stuck on the first stage. And now we're going to look at Venture by Exidy. What a hard game. This is kind of weird. The hero, Winky, can go through walls, but after a very short while, the attract mode will restart. So Winky doesn't have much time to do anything. Your goal is to collect the treasures and get out. The enemies are very tough in this game. It's weird. Now we're going to look at Fantasy by SNK and licensed to Rockola in the US. You cannot finish the stage with the pirates. There will be a stage after this with pirates. This game was okay for its time. I enjoyed it a little bit. I remember seeing it at Malibu Grand Prix and Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor restaurants. But this is the stage you cannot finish. The computer will not finish it for you. It will not want to cross very far over to the right from where he just was. And you have to go down to the bottom, and it looks like you stick your head up your girlfriend's dress. But the cannons can take out these pirates for you, or you can get shot by the cannon. But your goal is to go to the bottom and reach your girlfriend, and it never happens with invincibility on in the track mode. And then some pirates will respawn, but computer will never beat this part. I think it keeps going if your power runs out, your power meter. But at any rate, that is Fantasy. Oh, he crossed over there, but he won't go to the bottom. But this was a list of games from the 70s and 80s that I wanted to show you what it looks like to have invincibility on in the attract mode. That's always kind of interested me for some reason, to see what the computer would do, how they would react when they were supposed to die, and they didn't. But I'll have more games in the future for you to see. I'm just generally going to do like 70s and 80s. I don't want to do much further than that because this series is going to take a long time out of my schedule. But that's Fantasy, and it had kind of weird voice samples, kind of annoying at times. Created by SNK and licensed to Rockola in the US. Rockola was mostly known for their jukeboxes before they started doing arcade video games. Maybe I died when my power ran out. I don't remember. Let's see. Nope, they just freeze there. Nope. Well, at any rate, that was my look at arcade classics from the 70s and 80s with Invincibility cheat on in the attract mode. Well, this is Crazyclimber80 saying thank you for watching. Hope you continue to have a great weekend, and I will see you later with another entry in this particular series. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.